Welcome, everybody. February 2nd, 2022. My, how time passes. Glad that you could join us. Hope you can stay with us. We got a couple of great candidates that are going to be on the program. And as you can tell, I'm alone in studio today because my five-star partner is gallivanting the United States, and we'll find out where she is in just a moment. But actually, we'll bring her in right now. Andrea, what's going on out there? Where are you?
You make me laugh, Orlando. Well, I'm in California, beautiful weather. I'm near Carmel, getting away a little bit after our amazing event, the Leadership Latino, that we were spending the weekend in El Paso with a lot of people. We have an amazing turnout. And, we've been doing Latino leadership for a while. And I think this is the biggest group that we have so far, very enthusiastic. And we have a really good speakers. So after that, I came here to relax a little bit, but I'm still working and join you in the program, Orlando.
Well, hopefully you won't become a permanent California resident because, I mean, obviously they checked your papers and didn't see that you were a conservative, right?
Well, you know what? I'm telling you that coming to here, the weather is beautiful, but you feel again the shock, and it's like a deja vu on the 2020 because everywhere you go, they start asking you for a mask. You can no go nowhere without a mask. So it is like I was not used to anymore about the mask because in Texas, I mean, fortunately, we don't have that anymore. But yeah, here is that way. So it is a little bit shocking again, feeling that, I mean, where's your mask? Where is your mask?
Right.
Everywhere they ask you. I mean, nothing can be perfect. They have a beautiful weather, but nothing can be perfect.
And I'm really proud of Andrea because while we were in El Paso, I got her into a world famous honky tonk, did a little two stepping, and so you can
And
check
you
that
make
off
me
the
dance.
list. I got
And
the
you make me dance.
Colombian out at a honky tonk. We were at Rosa's Cantina.
You make me dance. You thought that I was not gonna be able to dance that, but yes. I
Yeah.
mean, if I'm
Well,
Colombian, we know how to dance everything. I can make it.
okay. Well, it was a rough start, but you made it through. All right. As Andrea said, we did our Leadership Latino this past weekend in El Paso. It was one of our largest classes, and I'll tell you, we were honored to have been joined by three county chairs and a former county chair, which we've never had before. And We had the Fort Bend County chair, incoming Fort Bend County chair, who's also a presenter, and you've seen him on this program, Bobby Everly. And then we had the Hudspeth County chair, and we had the El Paso County chair, and the former El Paso GOP chair. So it was quite a success. And the highlight of the day, of course, was that we were joined by our newly elected state representative, John Lujan, from the southern portion of Bexar
We have
County.
a video. Let's see, Mark can play the video.
Yeah, we have a video, and we're going
Let's
to share
talk
just
on
some of
top
the
of.
highlights. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead.
Making his
Also,
presentation.
mhm.
So
He was
anyway, it,
recently
it was a
elected
great,
a Texas
yeah,
House Representative. This 118.
yeah. It was a great turnout. Most of the students in the class appreciated all the information they got. They got to learn about how to deal with the press, how to file ethics reports, how to raise money, how to, launch a campaign, maybe if they want to run for a precinct chair. So, it's a one-day seminar, and we give the students a lot of
And
information.
this is Dan Corrales.
Yeah, we have the newly elected city council member from Midland, Texas, Dan Corrales, who happens to be the only Hispanic. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army, and he's licensed to practice law in the state of Texas and in the state of New York. He's a heck of a guy, a father, a husband, a businessman, and very involved in the community in Midland. So we were real honored to have some really rising stars in the conservative movement across the state in El Paso. So we really enjoyed it. We had a great turnout, and I believe that our next event will be either in Fort Worth and Tarrant County, or down in Nueces County, down in the Corpus Christi area. So stand by. We will announce that on our Facebook page and on the program as soon as we set the date for the next Leadership Latino. But it was a lot of good information. Candidates walk away with a pretty good sense of what it takes to be a candidate in the state of Texas, whether it's a precinct chair or whether it's your county treasurer or county judge or state district court judge. They walk away with a pretty good idea of what is necessary. And so, speaking of candidates, we have two great candidates today. One is a dear friend of mine, very involved in the political landscape here in Harris County. His name is Vidal Martinez, and Vidal is running for county judge in Harris County. And so, Vidal, welcome. Thank you for taking a few minutes to be with us.
And also, Texas
morning,
Latino
Orlando.
Conservatives
Good morning,
is the honor to endorse you, Vidal Martinez. So, bienvenido, buenos días.
Gracias, Andrea. Same to you, Orlando.
So, Vidal, how goes it? Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to, give up a fairly lucrative lifestyle to run a tough campaign for county judge of Harris County.
Crime, corruption, and common sense. Those are the three main themes here. With this crime wave that this present commissioner's court has absolutely started and they own, it's ridiculous what's happening to our entire community. And there seems to be no recognition that they are the cause of this. We have criminals on the street. We have murder rates going up. Houston just became the murder capital of the United States for the month of January. We have 157 people that have been murdered since this new bail bond reform since 2019. And so we have that have been murdered by people that are out on more than double felony bonds. The other one is corruption and the mismanagement. Counties are involved in infrastructure, in your court system, your legal system, public health, and transportation. And in each area, they have failed us. And they have diverted infrastructure dollars for this social woke agenda. And we have a very young female county judge, but she comes with an indoctrination that is George Soros inspired, and it's the left woke social agenda over infrastructure governance, and it just doesn't fit. So we had 44 years of Harris County Republican county judges from 74 to 2018. I'm here to return it back to a business conservative managing our county.
Let's take that issue of crime. I served on the Harris County Bail Bond Board for 12 years, Vidal, and, people don't understand this crime wave is very unique to Harris County. It isn't occurring at such a drastic rate in any other city in Texas, and it's because the Harris County Commissioner's Court entered into an agreement that went far beyond what was the original issue in the federal court case. And that original issue was that indigent defendants in minor misdemeanor cases did not have an opportunity to present to a judge or a magistrate that they were in fact indigent. And what would happen is, in many cases, they would linger in the Harris County jail at the expense of the taxpayer, which most agree that you shouldn't be in jail for 7, 8, 10, even 20 days waiting a court hearing on a minor shoplifting case. We all, I think, can agree on that. If the person didn't have a violent background, they should be out on personal recognizance if they can prove that they're indigent and don't have the resources. But Harris County went way beyond that, right, Vidal?
They sure did. They settled the case. You can compare the two cities, Houston and Dallas. Both had the same issues before them by what's called the O'Donnell case. And in that case, instead of going through in the court case like Dallas did, and by the way, Dallas just won last month on their case, they didn't have the same crime wave. Instead, the first time they had a 3-2 majority in Commissioner's Court, they settled the case beyond the parameters that was necessary, and they absolutely initiated and owned this crime wave now.
Yeah,
O'Donnell, by the way, the basis of the settlement has now been ruled unconstitutional at the Fifth Circuit 4 times. And so
correct.
The underlying basis is just a matter of this commissioner's court is not going to go back and try to cancel it. We've paid over $100 million in that settlement of taxpayer monies, and we're going to have to just come back with a 3-2 majority and either dismantle that settlement or unfund it.
Yeah, it seems like the criminals are getting away with murder. I was reading that today as we speak, it's going to be a march in Houston because of this girl that got killed 22 shots. She got 22 shots, and the killer get away with murder because he left with 25,000, paying 25,000 out of the 250,000 bond, and it's like no consequence. It pretty much like the victims are no value on this administration.
Well, not only that, we're defunding law enforcement. We took away the constables' rollover monies for the crime areas. We haven't paid the deputy sheriffs the second half of their promised pay raise from 2018. A third of the sheriff's department has quit, with another third ready to retire. There is no respect for law enforcement at this point, and we have criminals that are out on the street that know that they're going to be out by the end of the day. And so it's
Hmm.
just, there's a failure of law enforcement. You see the three policemen that got shot.
Yeah.
We have a constable who was murdered a week
Hmm.
ago. We have now the murder capital of America. Instead of being the energy capital of the world, we're the murder capital of the United States right now.
Yeah, and what's sad is, and it is affecting the disproportionately minority communities. I remember the tragic case of the grandmother who went to McDonald's to get some food, and they tried to steal her purse and then ran her over. I mean, it was just horrible what's going on. But beyond crime, and by the way, the Harris County Commissioner's Court does own this. This is a self-inflicted wound, is it not?
Yes, there's no question about it. You can compare the two cities. Dallas didn't have it, we did.
Yeah. Let's move on. In addition to the misguided settlement agreement with respect to the bail bond system, uh, there's been horrible mismanagement. I remember during the beginning of the pandemic, in instead of consulting with healthcare professionals, and you know, this court and this county judge pops up a $30 million tent hospital in a parking lot at a stadium, and then was paying exorbitant salaries of several $1,000s per day, and it was never used. In addition to that 30 million, I think there was also a contract that she tried to pass on to a political consultant to address health care issues in Harris County. A political consultant with no health care background, and of course she was caught, and the media highlighted it, and of course she pulled it back. That would have been $14 million. So, in just two missteps with respect to health care, we've almost wasted $44 million of taxpayer money. Is that acceptable?
No. I've said for 30 years now, I've been on the board of Methodist Hospital. It's the number one hospital in Texas, number 16 out of 6,000 in America. It is stunning the lack of communication between the CEOs of the big 4 or 5 hospitals in the Texas Medical Center, which, by the way, is the world's biggest medical center, and the county. So the county, within a mile away, sets up this 10 hospital and doesn't see a single patient, not one. And the med center had capacity. We didn't have to waste all those dollars and that time, by the way. She loves to get up on and pull a red alert. She's done it 3 times now. Put the whole county on red alert, which basically shuts down county functions and a lot of other public functions, and doesn't consult with the Texas Medical Center whatsoever. When I'm county judge, I'll be talking to all 5 of the CEOs of the big hospitals, and we'll determine what's best for the city of Houston, Harris County, and move accordingly based
You
on
know,
science.
yeah, it's a power grab, in my opinion. I just can't help, as we know, Andrea's out in California right now, but it's funny, like New York and California. Andrea was telling us you have to have vaccination records and masks and all kinds of things to show up to public places and enjoy a meal, right? We don't in Texas, but in Harris County, she raises the threat level of the virus to red, I think just to get some press. But the hypocrisy of it all, Vidal, is that Gavin Newsom and a bunch of the of the California athletes were photographed this, in the past week at some of the sporting events, some of the NFL playoffs, unmasked with thousands of people. It's just none of this makes sense to me.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And there'll be a more rational basis for making these countywide decisions going forward.
Well, I sure
And
hope
and
so.
we're gonna have the Super Bowl here. They're gonna have the Super Bowl here in California just in a little bit more than a week. So let's see how they're gonna deal with everything that they want to enforce here. I wanna Vidal, you talk about it that you're running for the primaries right now for the Republican nomination. So because it's very important for people to understand about the primaries. We have a record of the Hispanics not going and vote on the primaries, and we need to change that.
That's correct. The primary is some 26 days away now. It's on March 1st, but early voting begins at the end of next week. So Hispanics have to participate in the process. They have to involve themselves in voting in primaries and come in and vote for the right candidate. So if you support me for county judge, I need your help to get through the primary process, and that's where you can begin. And Latinos now are much more conservative, as we
Hmm.
saw across the state, as your entire organization shows. And we're pro-life, we're pro-Second Amendment, we're very conservative. There's everything you can think of that's a Republican or a conservative is in the Latino community, and everyone just figured it out. And we have the largest pocket of Latinos here in Houston and Harris County than the rest of the state. We have about 3.2 million in here in our area, and that's more than the entire border from El Paso to Brownsville, and
Yeah.
it's bigger than the city of San Antonio or Dallas. So right here is where it's going to start, and it has to translate from what occurred in the Valley and in Midland and places like that, and it will occur here. This is going to be the bellwether for the next century.
Yeah. One of the things that I
Yeah.
always say is that we've got to invite the Hispanic community that has historically not participated in the primaries, because I hear a lot of comments from Latinos, Hispanics, Tejanos, whatever you want to call us, that they may not like the message or the past messages of the Republican Party. Fine, I understand that, but to change things, you've got to participate. You've got to get, to use a baseball term, out of the dugout and in on the field. You can't be in the game and have any opportunity of winning the game if you're not on the field. And so our appeal today, and what we do here at Texas Latino Conservatives, is not only educate the community, but put out the appeal and the invitation for Hispanics to vote for our qualified conservative Hispanic candidates that are seeking a nomination in the Republican primaries. And as Vidal says, South Texas, the real election used to be the primaries, because everybody voted in the Democratic primaries. So the candidate that received the nomination for the Democratic ticket in many South Texas and RGV counties were by default the winner of the election, because there was no Republican. That's changed. I'll give you an example. In Maverick County, we have a record number of Latino Republicans on the ballot competing in the primary, which means that the general election will be broadly contested. And that's never happened down in Eagle Pass, Maverick County. So as Vidal says, that's going to change. But it's going to take our Tejanos, our Hispanics, our Latinos voting in the Republican primary for the candidate of your choice. We at TLC have endorsed Vidal Martinez. I've known Vidal for decades. He was very involved in the Republican movement back in the 80s when he was heading up the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. He has served many Republican governors. He has been a commissioner on the Port of Houston. He was chairman of the State Bar Association, where literally they supervised and oversaw more than 30,000 lawyers across the state of Texas. So Vidal is eminently qualified. He's very successful in private practice, but I'm telling you, it takes a lot for somebody to make the sacrifice to leave that private practice and then go into public service. And for that, we salute you, Vidal.
Thank you, Orlando.
But
So,
something
I
very
need to
important
remind you, though,
also.
that it was 90,000 lawyers, not 30,000. My
well, there you
misery for
go.
that year was triple that.
Many people say we probably need 30,000, not 90,000 lawyers.
But Vidal, we were talking about the importance of the Latino vote, not only to participate, to go and vote, but we're seeing these more Latinos running for office, and this is very important. And because they're tired of it, they're waking up, and they know the importance of make their voice loud and their values. Because we always say in the Texas Latino Conservatives, vote your values. And that's the most important thing that we need to highlight here.
And I want to remind everybody that Harris County is not blue. It's Judge Emmett lost by 19,000 votes in the last election. Two of the four county commissioners are Republican. There's 4.9 million people here, but only 2.2 live in the city. 2.5 live in the donut around the city, and that's the Republican donut that had 44 years of Republican county judges and conservative businessmen at the head of the county. We're just returning back to that.
Vidal, I want to go back to some of the issues because you talked about crime, and we tried to educate the viewers a little bit about this crime wave and why it's unique to Harris County because of the decisions of the Commissioner's Court that didn't need to happen. And they also have, let me just remind everybody, Harris County Commissioner's Court and Lena Hidalgo have the opportunity tomorrow to amend or abandon the settlement agreement. They refuse to do that. That would help the crime wave in Harris County tomorrow if there was leadership in the county and they would do that. Number two, you mentioned about the mismanagement of health care funds when we talked about those two contracts. But you also mentioned that the county manages infrastructure, whether it's the transportation issues with the toll roads, the flood control, and there was a debacle that a lot of people aren't talking about, and that is that the big highway money that comes from the Federal Transit Administration, the highway funds, that we pay taxes through our gasoline taxes to Washington, and then Washington redistributes that to the states. It comes to the state of Texas as a big grant to TxDOT, to Texas Department of Transportation. And TxDOT manages the highway infrastructure in the state of Texas, meaning our interstate system. And Harris County received massive amounts of dollars from the federal government to improve transit in Harris County by realigning Interstate 45. Lena Hidalgo has basically said to TxDOT, take that money, give it to somebody else. We don't want the expansion and the realignment of Interstate 45. Can you brief us on that?
Yes, Orlando. And as you're aware, I served on our local Chamber of Commerce board for more than a dozen years. And while I was a port commissioner, I was also the chair of the Transportation Committee at the Greater Houston Partnership. 20 years ago, I was chairman for 2 years. Back then, we were fighting for the I-45 expansion monies, which was already a 10 or 15-year fight back then. You fight for these dollars in the decades ahead. Today, we're fighting for 2040 and 2050 monies. So at the last, and we won $8.5 billion for the I-45 expansion. And literally, at the 11th hour, 59th minute, they're handing us a check to start and commence the I-45 expansion, which took 20 or 30 years to get and to be able to start this project. They decide to sue the state of Texas because the social prejudice index wasn't correct. Now, their thinking is totally off. You don't negotiate with the state of Texas on something that took 30 years to put in place and had numerous studies, social impact studies, environmental impact studies, and yet she was all of 28 or 29 years old at the time, thought that she could renegotiate to be able to divert some of those money for their social woke left agenda issues. State of Texas said no thank you. And so right now my hope is that that lawsuit, they file suit against the state to not pay them $8.5 billion. Can you imagine what that means for transportation, for flood control, for jobs in the Houston area? And the great thing about it is that COVID has caused that lawsuit to sort of get stale. It's in the line, and we can get third vote on Commissioners Court to cancel that lawsuit on the first day of a 3-2 Republican conservative Commissioners Court.
Yeah, and one last
I'm
issue
talking
because
about first day.
yeah, one last issue. I want to remind folks that in the early days of the Hidalgo administration, one of the first moves that she tried to do was to raise property taxes substantially to the limit allowed by law. That did not occur only because two of the conservatives on the court left the room and broke quorum. And so we were saved by the conservatives. But explain to people that big money grab.
First of all, Harris County has a solvent pension system, retirement system. It had over $300 in reserves, and it did not suffer. It suffers one of the highest. It has the highest credit rating that's almost possible for any governmental entity. You don't have to raise taxes unless you want to spend it for all your left programs. And the first year there was an 8% maximum, and they wanted to go to the maximum. That is, increase your property taxes by 8%. Now the cap is 3.5%, and we calculated that if they go to the max every year, we say, well, your tax rate goes up 19% in one 4-year term. It's not just accumulative because you have to accumulate on top. So it's little over 19%. So that they want to tax you just to have more money to spend. And by the way, we passed some flood control bonds of $2.5 billion. Only 18 of the 191 projects have been started, and they've capitalized. They've canceled projects, and they've left those monies inside of the Precinct 2 and Precinct 1 commissioners' districts. What are they doing with that money? And why aren't we getting on with our flood bonds? And why do you need more taxes at that point?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. We are very solvent, and even though we don't have our reserves right now, we're down to $10 million from 300 plus in reserves. They spent that, but we also have about 175 million coming in ARP money, the COVID money, the American Recovery Act, and that's inbound next year. But they don't want to. They want to spend that for other things too.
Yeah. Well, I know Andrea's going to ask you one last question, and then we're going to let you go, and then we're going to bring in our friend down in Bexar County, Marc LaHood, who's running for district attorney. But Andrea, why don't you go ahead and ask Vidal your last question?
Well, Vidal, the call to action, tell us how to help you and remind people about early voting and, of course, the primaries election.
If you'll look at Harris County votes, just go on the website, Harris County votes, figure out where to go vote in the primary, or go in the early part, and starting next on the 14th. Figure out where to go. If you're registered to vote, go vote in the Republican primary and vote for me. And we're hoping to clear the field early so that I can get on with campaigning against Lina Hidalgo and replace her as county judge of Harris County.
And we want to congratulate you because the Ethics Commission finance reports that were due January 15th show you at a substantial lead. I think that if you took the sum total of the amount of money raised by all the other candidates and doubled it, you were still far ahead. And as everybody knows, money, as much as we decry it, is absolutely necessary to get your message out. So congratulations for the hard work that you've done, calling upon your friends and families and colleagues to help bring the resources in to make the election a success for you. So we want to wish you the very best. We thank you for joining us, and if you need us, we'll be here every Wednesday, and keep us informed about what's going on.
Que Dios los bendiga.
Muchas gracias,
Vidal. Nos vemos pronto. Bueno, de Harris County nos vamos a Bexar County, and something very in common about Vidal and our next guest, Marc LaHood. They want to fight crime. And the crime crisis is not only here in Harris County, but it's along the whole country, and our main counties in Texas are suffering from that. And that's why we have also Marc LaHood, who's running for district attorney in Bexar County. Marc, bienvenido. Welcome to TLC Live. We cannot hear you, Marc. Maybe you are in mute.
Well, looks like
Hello,
he's
Mark.
muted again. Mark, you may have to,
Call us again.
yep, call again. I don't know what's going on with your computer, but Mark's going to get off, and then he's gonna log back in, and hopefully we'll be able to get him back on. But yeah, every county in Texas is having primaries. The good news is now that there are more Hispanics now running in Republican primaries across the state of Texas, and that's why we go out of our way to invite all the candidates that we can possibly invite. And as we said earlier, Marc LaHood, an attorney in Bexar County, is seeking the position, the nomination of the Republican Party to represent the conservative voters of Bexar County as district attorney. So, Mark, can you hear us?
I can. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, finally we worked out that
We can
technical
hear.
issue. So thanks
Source
for
is already
joining
coming
us.
after me.
Well, look, first of all, for those that don't know you, give us a little history about who's Marc LaHood and what do you do in Bexar County, and why have you decided to run for the position of district attorney?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Just a short rundown. I was born and raised here in San Antonio. I am a criminal defense attorney for the last 15 years, and I have represented clients here in Bexar County and throughout the state, fighting one case at a time. I was married in 2017, my beautiful wife. I adopted our oldest daughter in the same year, and then we have 3 more children right now that are under the age of 4. We have a 4-year-old, a 22-month-old, and then a newborn is 12 weeks old. And what got me to run and off the sidelines, you had a great analogy earlier talking about the baseball. If we don't get into the game and do something and stop sitting by, nothing's going to happen for the better. And so I love Bexar County. I love my family. I love my community. And what I've seen in the last 3 years with this radical, progressive, and dangerous ideology about defunding police, severing ties with law enforcement, selectively enforcing crimes, not prosecuting some crimes at all, no matter what, is creating dangerous situations here in Bexar County for us now, and more importantly, for future generations, for all of our kids, all of our grandchildren, and for the prosperity of the county. I mean, no one wants to open a business or move here if they think that, we're going to be the next San Francisco and there's going to be crime and chaos. That's not a stable environment for anything, for families or business. And so that's what got me off and got me into the fight.
Yeah, Mark, I was highlighting at the beginning of the show, and we've been talking about the late shows that we've been having, that more people are more conservative are running for office without any political background. So and as Orlando was saying, why to live your luxury life just to become to service for the public? And I think we're tired. I think we need to take action. We need to do something. And as you said, I'm a mother, and you are a father, and I am very worried about our future generation.
We have to be. I mean, the reality is money can't keep you safe. I mean, unless you're one of the select few that has 24-hour armed guards. Just a month ago, woman left Whole Foods over there in the quarry, walked out. She was parked in the front spot of the parking lot, 8 o'clock at night. It wasn't abandoned. It was busy. They tried to carjack her, and she was shot in the face. I mean, chaos, crime, and dangerousness are prevalent throughout our community. And if we don't enforce the law, if we don't enforce prosecuting criminals to the fullest extent, all it does is reinforce that anything goes, and it just keeps building and building and building upon itself. We have to put our foot down now. We have to stand up, and we have to end it.
Yeah,
So let me explain.
They doing it because it's no consequence.
Exactly.
Let me explain a little bit about the criminal justice system, because every county, there's 254 counties in Texas, most counties have an elected district attorney. And a district attorney is the person responsible for bringing charges to an alleged defendant in a crime. A crime is defined as any violation of the Texas Penal Code, the Texas Criminal Code. And so when a police officer stops a person, and may have a warrant or is involved in a chase or arrests somebody for rape or aggravated robbery. These are all what's called penal code violations. They arrest them and take them to jail. And then the police officer writes a report and presents it to the district attorney. The district attorney has to review that case to see if there are sufficient charges to charge that defendant. And then that begins the whole criminal justice process where that person is arraigned, a bond is set, unless you live in Harris County, of course, you're turned free. And then a trial date is set. And so I bring that up because there is a difference between a district attorney and a county attorney. Harris County and Bexar County have county attorneys, but they generally, and very loosely defined, are the lawyers for the county. They involve themselves mostly in civil matters, where the district attorney enforces the criminal code, prosecutes on behalf of the taxpayers of the state of Texas, the Texas Penal Code in court to a jury of peers of the defendant. Is that a pretty good assessment of what the district attorney is, Mark? And if not, you can correct me.
That's pretty close. I mean, there's a few differences. There's a criminal district attorney and district attorney. So here in Bexar County, this position is a criminal district attorney, which means that not only prosecuting crimes, whether it's the penal code, whether it's the health and safety code, we also handle the civil aspect of the county as well. So we're a dual purpose. We do handle the civil side and we do handle the criminal side. That's interesting. But aside from that, you're pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. So, but there are two responsibilities, and I guess like in Harris County where we have two of them. I mean, one handles the civil side, one handles the criminal side, and that's the case too. It can be a little complicated. For example, here in Harris County, we have state district judges that are civil district court judges, and then we have judges, state district court judges that are only criminal cases. But if you travel just south on 45, Mark, the judges in Galveston, the state district judges, hear all kinds of cases. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a little complicated, but hopefully we like to give information to the folks and so they can understand the legal system.
Yes, sir.
Let's shift a little bit because you're a lifelong Bexar County resident. And, you know, Bexar County's tough because they are so used to voting for the liberal left. But do you see changes among the voters and the Mexican-American, the Tejano voters, the Latino voters in Bexar County?
Without a doubt. You know, Vidal hit the nail on the head. The problem that I've seen and the solution that I've started to do to try and make a difference down here is that Hispanics have been lied to. I mean, you know, the left has stolen the narrative as of right now, and they think that they belong to that party. But Hispanic culture, traditionally, we love God, we value God, we worship God, we are pro-life, we are patriotic, we love our country, we serve our country. We are pro-law enforcement, pro-securing the law and enforcing the law and securing borders and securing safety for our families. I mean, we are a very family-oriented and a community-oriented culture. And we believe in the right to defend ourselves. We are pro-Second Amendment. We are every bit the core values of conservative values and the Republican Party values. But they don't realize that. We haven't been shown that. And so what I've been doing the last month, I've personally talked to probably about 150, maybe 200 plus people that have never voted for a Republican in their life. And the vast majority, I would say at least 75 to 85%, just ballpark, I don't have the exact numbers, are extremely open and receptive to what the message is, which is you just focus on the core truths. And about a third of them said, you have my support. Never voted Republican in my life, and I'm going to come out and vote Republican primary. It's just a matter of common sense, talking to people and showing them what we have in common, what we stand for, because we can't let the left steal that narrative anymore, in my humble opinion.
What you're talking about is very similar to what we hear about John Lujan. John Lujan was saying the same thing. You know, many people that vote for him, it was just, we're going to vote for you, regardless the party, because they're tired of seeing what is going on. And it's nothing to do with any party. we need to fix this situation. We need to work so hard to change what is going on. Otherwise, it's going
Hmm.
to be out of control, as we're seeing that is getting out of control.
You know, Mark, one of the issues that I think Hispanics in Texas are concerned about is economic opportunity. I know when the Biden administration and the Democrats were talking about, shutting down pipelines and limiting natural resource exploration, that really sent shockwaves down in South Texas, where so many people depend on the oil and gas industry for a livelihood. But one thing in common, we as Hispanics, as Latinos, we have a huge immigrant population. And I'm going to speak for myself. I tell people all the time, when I immigrated to America, we slept on donated mattresses. We had nothing. And this is, in fact, the land of opportunity. And Hispanics, more than anybody else, value entrepreneurship. We value the ability to design our own destiny, whether it's the construction business, whether we want to become an engineer, whether we want to serve in the U.S. military. And by the way, San Antonio has a disproportionate number of military operations going on, and a large swath of Texas Hispanics join the military. But
Hmm.
economic opportunity, prosperity for our families, and a better life for our children is a value that is near and dear to the Latino community. That's the value of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. And I'm glad to hear that you're saying that there are folks in Bexar County that are starting to realize that the narrative has been hijacked by the liberal left for a long, long time. That the Castro's brothers believe that government ought to redistribute the resources of the American taxpayer to give it to those that don't have the initiative. And I believe that we should have a social safety net. There's no question about it. If you've come across a hard time, if you're a low income person and you have health care issues, of course we ought to provide health care. Of course we ought to provide some help with insurance. Of course that, people talk about socialism. One of the greatest socialist operations in this country is public education. Everybody gets a free education. I agree with that. But the left has taken it to an extreme, and you just talked about those issues, whether it's family values, whether it's taxing businesses out of existence, whether it's dictating what you do every day in your life, how you can leave your house, with whom you can speak. We have social media
Hmm.
now squelching conservative voice. We have a big fight on our hands, don't we, Mark?
We have a huge fight, and the most important fight. Looking at history, the one thing that's consistent with socialist regimes is it's a do as I say, not as I do mentality. And it's about creating, in my humble opinion, about creating chaos at the ground level, because when you break things down, then people are vulnerable. And then once they get used to you giving them the money or you having the power and allocating who gets what, now they're always stuck on the proverbial tit. And so we are 100% right about what's going on and the fight that we have, because once we lose that fight, coming back is even harder. We have the chance to stop that movement now and stop it dead in the tracks. My goal is to kick Soros and this radical ideology out of Bexar County, out of Texas, and eventually out of the United States.
It's interesting that you mentioned George Soros, who, as you know, has been a great destabilizer in world economies, but also has, over the years, focused himself and his dollars on destabilizing the United States politically. I've never quite been able to put my hand on why he does that, but you're absolutely correct. I've had the unpleasant experience of having been born in Cuba, which, as you know, is the Marxist, Leninist, leftist, communist government that believes that socialism is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you look at Cuba now, and it's an economic disaster. The people are unhappy. There's protests in the streets. The young people have no future, nothing to look forward to, no economic opportunity. They don't get to travel the world like people from other countries do. And it's sad. And then I had the unpleasant experience of living in Caracas, Venezuela, another disastrous country with massive natural resources, but they've squandered the money because the socialists have promised you all these things. And socialism, as you've heard, works great until you run out of other people's money. And that's what's happening in these countries, And so I think that we've got to continue to educate the Hispanic community that, yeah, nothing is free. And by the way, the government does not create wealth. The government does not, generate income. The government is confiscatory. It takes it from us. It takes it out of our pockets. It takes it out of our children's hands and our children's future and sends it to Washington, D.C. And then the bureaucrats, get to decide who gets that money. You're absolutely right, Mark. That's called power. And so the conservatives have always been for a limited government, a smaller government, a low taxing government, so that people can enjoy liberty and freedom. And I'm glad that you're spreading that message throughout Bexar County that has historically been very, very blue. But I am optimistic. I've spent a lot of time. In fact, I was in Bexar County yesterday. I was in San Antonio. And I'm enthusiastic about what's going on, but I'm more enthusiastic about candidates like you.
Well, thank you, from your lips to God's ears. But if I can just say one thing, what you tipped the nail on, people ask a lot of questions why George Soros has invested in DA's races across the country. And I'll give you an example back here locally. He funded the current DA. The first year the current DA took office, he made it official policy that every single fentanyl, every single methamphetamine case, every single heroin case, every single cocaine case, quarter gram or less, would be rejected, dismissed, and not prosecuted. These drugs are the most addictive, the most dangerous, and the most destructive. People ask, well, why would you do that? Well, because their agenda is to legalize these things. Their agenda is to create a society of people that are dependent and addicted and weakened and can't fight back. And so there's nothing more important right now than stopping that for our futures.
Well, that's right. And I can tell you, I mean, we history repeats itself, but we have a history of a society completely addicted to opioids, and we had that situation in China with opium. I mean, it absolutely destroyed China, and you had opium dens even here in the United States. So I can't figure out George Soros' social agenda, but it's very troubling, and people need to be aware of that. I will also tell you, Mark, that George Soros contributed $500,000 to our district attorney here several years ago when she got elected. So I know Andrea has a question.
No, I want Mark to emphasize his issues, his platform, and tell us how everybody can help you in your county.
Thank you so much. Just very briefly, my platform is twofold: ideology and execution. On day one, we have to change and implement opening communication, support of law enforcement. People don't realize that the DA's office and police, and y'all touched upon it, very insightful earlier, but police and the DA's office are two sides of the same coin. The DA can't effectively prosecute cases, can't get justice for victims, can't enforce the law if law enforcement doesn't properly work a case up and submit it. And law enforcement is not going to make arrests if they know that cases are going to be dismissed and rejected. And we're already seeing that. I've talked to dozens and dozens of Bexar County deputies and San Antonio police officers that stop making arrests, like I said, for low-level amounts of heroin, meth, and cocaine. Stop making arrests for unauthorized use of vehicles. Stop making arrests for trespassing. Stop making arrests for all kinds of thefts and frauds because these cases are being rejected. And so day one, that's issue number one. Issue number two is start prosecuting all the laws regardless of an agenda. There should not be an agenda in the political system. The agenda should be to seek justice, to help create a greater public safety for the community, and to get justice for victims. And the third is to empower the prosecutors and to motivate and lead. It's not just words that aren't going to get this done. Getting elected come November 1st and being sworn in January 1st isn't going to fix this problem, because we have to motivate and excite and lead and shelter our prosecutors. And we're losing them in droves. There's 3 prosecutors I can think of that quit this office to go work at neighboring county DA offices, but they still live here in Bexar County. That gives you an idea of how demoralized they are under this regime. And then the execution is a practical matter. I'm a business owner, and I know how to run a business and how to manage. And this office is mismanaged, which is why we're seeing dismissals of murders. I don't know if y'all saw in the news, a capital murder had a mistrial, sex cases, drug cases. It's just chaos. You can't run a business without good leadership and effective leadership. And taking emotion out of it, taking justice and all these ideologies which are true out of it, the DA's office is just a business, and we have to run it efficiently.
I'm so glad you brought that up, that the dismissal of certain cases, the picking and choosing of what penal code violations are going to be enforced. There can be no bigger dereliction of duty than that, because the penal code is clear, and there is no more democratic document than the penal code. People don't understand that the criminal laws of the state of Texas are promulgated by the legislature representing the citizens of every county. So that is a very democratic document. It's we as a society say we do not want to put up with opioids destroying our communities, and we're going to prosecute people. When a district attorney is sworn in and takes an oath to uphold the laws of the United States, of this state, and of Bexar County, and then turns around and decides that, no, I'm not going to prosecute that because my big contributor, George Soros, says it's no good. That's a dereliction of a duty, is it not?
Without a doubt it is. It's more than a dereliction. It's a betrayal, in my opinion. I mean, this is the DA's office is the chief law enforcement in the county. And so when the chief law enforcement officer is not prosecuting crimes based on a political agenda, based off of not the law. I mean, legislatures create the law. The DA's office enforces the law and gets justice. And so when you ignore that, when you reject that, when you turn your back on that, you're not only creating chaos for the justice system itself, but you're enforcing further crime and further chaos in the community. It's just, you keep asking what the agenda is. I believe the agenda of why they're pushing this both nationally, statewide, and locally with the DA's office is to create chaos, because it further breaks us down so that they can build us up in what they want. They want that socialist image to be built. You can't build it when you have success. You can't build it while everything is safe and secure, because people know, hey, this is working. This is what needs to be. This is the truth. You can only take power after chaos has broken you down.
And you know what, Mark? And they're smart, because they do it at the very basic level. They do it at the county level with the district attorney. They do it at the school board with the trustees. They do it at the community college level with their trustees. I mean, it seems innocuous, but really it is a brilliant game plan that they've been executing for decades, and we've got to be vigilant that that is an erosion of our freedom and our liberties. All right, look, we want to thank you for your generosity and for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here on TLC Live. I do have a pressing question, because a lot of my friends in San Antonio say, well, Marc's Hispanic, he's Hispanic. I'm gonna make a dumb comment. LaHood generally is not a Hispanic name, so give us tell us where the Latino infiltrated the family tree.
So my mom is Mendiola. Her father was Luis Guillermo Mendiola. He was born in Laredo, and like I said earlier, Hispanics are patriotic. He served in World War II. He was discharged as a technical sergeant for the U.S. Army Air Forces. He had 5 children, 2 boys. Both of his sons, Louis Guillermo Jr. and Eddie, both served in the Navy during Vietnam. And so they moved here to San Antonio. My mom grew up on the South Side, but my mom is Mendiola. My dad is LaHood. So I'm a mix. But we're 100% American, 100% Texan. So.
And a little Tejano.
That is great.
Yeah, like Gloria Esteban. She's the
There
same,
you go.
Lebanese and Hispanic. So.
Well, good. Listen, we're honored to have you on the program. We want to wish you the very best. You're really doing good work on the ground and talking to voters and trying to encourage them and spreading the conservative gospel across the state of Texas. This was the vision of the Texas Latino conservatives, was to create an interest among young people in Texas to launch their candidacies as Republicans and talk to their neighbors. We realized a long time ago that, no slick brochure, no slick TV commercial or radio commercial was going to convince Hispanics in Texas to start looking at the conservative movement in Texas and preserving this great state into the future for our children. It is because of leaders like you that the community is now responding and looking at candidates in the Republican Party, and what you are doing is absolutely priceless. So keep it up. Let us know what you need, and I know Andrea's going to want the last comment from the left coast.
Just call to action. Just we're seeing your website, so I guess invite people to visit your website and contribute to your cause.
Yes, thank you so much. You asked earlier, and I think I went off on a tangent. The three things we need is for people to get off the sidelines and get in this game and vote. Voting matters. Every vote, every voice makes a difference, because even though one by itself, collectively, we're powerful. Two, this agenda that we're fighting against is funded by a billionaire and his rich friends. And so billionaire and a lot of money is powerful, but it's not more powerful than two things. God is the most powerful, and people collectively that believe in truth and passion and fight back are more powerful than any money. So we need people to get involved, spread the word, talk to their neighbors. And then we also, unfortunately, need money to get the message out. It doesn't matter how true it is what you're saying. If no one hears it, they're not going to be awoken. So,
well said.
Vote your values, and the local election is very important, because that's what impacts our life daily. So, Mark, thank you so much, and we're gonna, keep following your race and, of course, supporting you.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank y'all as well. I mean, y'all are an integral part of this fight. I mean, y'all's insight starting this movement of educating people is what is needed. So thank y'all for doing what y'all do.
Well, I got to tell you, I've traveled the state of Texas, and we have a dynamic offensive line. You guys are doing the hard work out there, keeping the bad guys from coming back and sacking the quarterback. So we appreciate what you're doing. As Marc says, everybody wants to bemoan money in politics, but at the end of the day, we're fighting for our values, and it requires resources. I've said it before. The production of this program costs a lot of money. Our message, our travels across the state of Texas, supporting great candidates like Vidal Martinez and Marc LaHood across the state of Texas is expensive. I got a call the other day from many candidates in Maverick County asking if we would print the yard signs. Of course we're going to help them with that, but that requires money. Banners, the events we do across the state of Texas. So if you're watching this program, if you believe in our values, if you love this great state, and if you want a brighter future for your children under a conservative leadership where economic opportunity exists, where freedom and liberty exist, where we ward off people like Robert Francis O'Rourke that says, hell yes, we're coming for your guns, in a state where he knows that Latino men love to hunt. I don't know what kind of campaign strategy that is, but you have to donate to us. So go to Texas Latino Conservatives, click the donate button. I don't care if it's $1, because $1 will buy us a couple stamps. I don't care if it's $10, because that buys us a box of envelopes, or if it's $5,000, or if it's $1 million. We want your participation. We want your contribution. That is the way that we know that what we're doing is welcomed in the state and is supported by the grassroots. So go to our donate page and share the love with us. Okay. Thank you to Vidal. Thank you to Marc.
I want to remind everybody about the election, the primaries. February 14th till February the 25th is the early voting, and then March 1st is the primaries. We need to go and vote our values. Marc and Vidal, thank you so much. And I'll come back tonight, Orlando.
Oh, boy, we can hardly wait. Well, safe travels, Andrea. Be careful. We'll see you tomorrow. And again, make sure that you do vote. It's important. Le damos una invitada a todos los latinos en el estado de Texas, en el condado de Bexar, en el condado de Harris, que voten en el Partido Republicano en las primarias, porque tenemos candidatos excelentes, conservadores, y necesitan su apoyo. Así que para los latinos, yo sé que muchos no han votado en las primarias republicanas, pero esta es una invitación por parte de su amigo Orlando Sánchez y Andrea Gómez, que nos acompañen y voten en las primarias republicanas. Así que nos vemos la semana que viene. Que Dios los bendiga y pórtense bien. Hasta luego.
See you next Wednesday.